Hi, I'm Sophia. I'll tell my story. I was 8 years old the first time I held a tennis racket. It was cheap, secondhand, and far too heavy for my small hands. But the moment I swung it, clumsy and unbalanced, I felt something spark inside me. For the first time in my short life, I felt free. The ball flew over the net in the local park's cracked court, and in that instant, I knew tennis was not just a game. It was a calling. But my family never saw it that way. "Stop wasting your time," my father would bark, his arms crossed, eyes filled with judgment. "Sports won't put food on the table." His words cut sharper than any opponent's serve. To him, success was working long hours, obeying tradition, and never chasing impossible dreams. My mother wasn't as harsh, but her silence was worse. She would simply sigh, press her lips together, and tell me to focus on my schoolwork. I tried to explain. I tried to make them see the fire in me. But every attempt ended with disappointment. At night, I would lie awake, imagining the crowd cheering my name, my racket raised in triumph. Then morning would come, and reality would crash over me like a storm. My dreams felt like scars etched on my heart, reminders of a future I wasn't allowed to chase. The worst part wasn't their words. It was their lack of belief. To be doubted by strangers is one thing, but when your own family refuses to see your light, the shadows grow heavier. Yet even in the silence of rejection, I found motivation. Each insult, each dismissal, each disappointed sigh became fuel. If they wouldn't believe in me, I would believe harder in myself. I remember the first local tournament I begged to enter. My father laughed in my face. "You'll embarrass yourself," he said. My mother shook her head. But I scraped together the entry fee with money saved from tutoring neighborhood kids. On the day of the match, I stood trembling on the baseline, my heart pounding like a drum. A result? I lost. Badly. The humiliation stung. I could hear my father's voice echoing in my head. Failure. My mother's silence was louder than any crowd. Walking home that evening, racket dragging behind me, disappointment clung to me like sweat. For a moment, I wanted to quit. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was chasing something that didn't belong to me. But then, I remembered how it felt when the ball connected with the racket. How alive I felt under the sun on that broken court. That memory was stronger than my scars. So I made myself a promise. One day, I'll turn these scars into stars. The road ahead was unclear. The obstacles felt insurmountable. But deep inside, revenge stirred quietly. Not against my family, but against every doubt they planted in me. My success would be the answer. My motivation would be the weapon. And tennis would be my way out of the shadows. That night, I fell asleep with the racket by my side, whispering to myself over and over again, "Scars to stars, scars to stars, scars to stars." The days after that humiliating loss were heavy. Every time I walked into the kitchen, my father's eyes reminded me of failure. "See," he would mutter, not even trying to hide his contempt. "This is what happens when you chase foolish dreams." My mother didn't argue with him. Instead, she placed another math workbook in front of me and said softly, "Focus on what matters, Sophia. Dreams don't pay bills." Those words were meant to protect me, I think. But to me, they felt like chains. Still, I refused to give up. The court had already stolen my heart, and no amount of disappointment could erase that. If my family wouldn't support me, I would find another way. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I started training in secret. Every morning before school, while the world was still half asleep, I would sneak out with my battered racket. The air was crisp, and the empty park became my sanctuary. The cracked lines on the court, the faded net, the distant sound of birds. These were my companions. There were no coaches, no cheering crowds, just me, the ball, and my determination. At first, it was chaos. My serves went wild, my forehand was sloppy, and my stamina collapsed after 30 minutes. But something inside me whispered, "Keep going." That whisper became a rhythm, a motivation, a fire that grew with every swing. Then, one morning, an old man appeared at the edge of the court. He had silver hair, sun-worn skin, and a limp in his left leg. I froze, embarrassed by my clumsy practice. But instead of walking away, he stepped closer. "You love the game," he said simply, his voice raspy but kind. I nodded, unsure what to say. "I used to play," he continued, pointing to the limp. "Not anymore. But I know what I see, and you've got something." His name was Coach Ramirez, a retired local player who once dreamed of going pro. He saw my scars and recognized his own in them. And to my shock, he offered to help me. From that day on, my secret training had a guide. He showed me how to position my feet, how to focus my mind, how to breathe through the disappointment of a missed shot. His lessons weren't just about tennis. They were about resilience. "Every scar you earn on this court," he told me, "can either break you or make you stronger. Which one it will be, that's up to you." I clung to his words like lifelines. Of course, training in secret wasn't easy. My father grew suspicious when I came home sweaty before school. My mother noticed the blisters forming on my hands. When they asked, I lied. "Just running in the mornings," I'd say. The guilt gnawed at me, but I convinced myself it was necessary, because this wasn't just about tennis anymore. It was about survival. It was about carving out an identity that wasn't defined by their disappointment. Some mornings, I wanted to stay in bed. The exhaustion was crushing. My muscles screamed, my grades slipped, and my friends stopped inviting me out. But then I remembered my promise. Scars to stars. I whispered it every time I tied my shoelaces, every time I hit another forehand into the net, every time I wanted to collapse. There were nights when I cried quietly into my pillow, wondering if I was insane. What if my father was right? What if success was impossible? But then I'd see the calluses forming on my palms, and instead of shame, I felt pride. They weren't just wounds. They were proof that I was fighting for something bigger than fear. And so day by day, secret by secret, scar by scar, I became stronger. I didn't know when my chance would come. I didn't know if the world would ever see me, but deep in my chest, I carried revenge. Not the kind that hurts, but the kind that fuels. Revenge through success. Revenge through motivation. Revenge through every drop of sweat that fell onto the cracked court. This was just the beginning. Coach Ramirez believed in me more than my family ever had. Under his watchful eye, my clumsy swings became sharper, my footwork lighter, my confidence stronger. I had never known what it felt like to be believed in until then. His encouragement was simple but powerful. "You're not just chasing a dream, Sofia. You're building it, swing by swing." Weeks turned into months, and the secret training became my lifeline. The scars on my hands deepened, but they no longer felt like shame. They felt like progress. For the first time, disappointment wasn't my whole story. It was just a step. Then came the news that would change everything. A flyer taped to the cracked fence of our park announced a local youth tournament. Nothing glamorous, just a small community event. But to me, it felt like Wimbledon. I tore the flyer down, my heart racing. Could I really do this again? Could I face another loss? Another round of humiliation, sometimes ridiculous. A hobby? Simple swinging. Never stops. That's what prompted me to run and compete. Ease promise. Coach Ramirez didn't hesitate. "You're ready," he said. This is where you start turning scars into stars. I could still hear my father's voice echoing, "You'll embarrass yourself." But this time, I wanted to prove him wrong. Not with arguments, not with shouting, but with success, with results, with a victory that could serve as my quiet revenge. I entered the tournament, using the little savings I had. On the day of the match, I stood on the court in a borrowed uniform, my hands trembling around the racket. The crowd was small, just parents, friends, and a few curious neighbors. But to me, it felt enormous. The first serve came flying at me. My instinct screamed to panic, but something inside shifted. All the mornings of running, all the secret drills, all the sweat and scars, they carried me forward. I swung, and the ball returned cleanly over the net. The rally continued, and for the first time, I wasn't drowning. I was alive. Point by point, game by game, I fought. My lungs burned, my legs wobbled, but my motivation was louder than my exhaustion. I remembered every word of doubt my father had thrown at me, and instead of breaking me, it sharpened me. Every disappointment I'd ever swallowed came pouring out in the form of determination. And then it happened. I won. It wasn't a championship trophy, not even a big medal, just a small plaque with my name etched on it. But when they handed it to me, it felt like the world had shifted. For the first time, I had proof. Proof that I wasn't chasing smoke. Proof that my scars could indeed lead to stars. The crowd clapped politely, but inside me, the applause was deafening. I looked down at the plaque and whispered, "Success." When I got home, I held the plaque out to my parents, hope flickering in my chest. Maybe now they would see me. Maybe now they would understand. My father barely glanced at it. "Local tournaments don't mean anything," he said flatly. "Don't let this distract you from real life." The words cut deeper than any defeat. My mother gave me a small smile, but her eyes were filled with worry, not pride. It was as if my victory threatened the world they had built around me. That night, I sat on my bed, plaque in my lap, tears in my eyes. For a moment, disappointment threatened to swallow me whole again. But then, I wiped my face and stared at the shiny surface of the award. They could dismiss it. They could ignore it, but they couldn't take it away from me. This was my first taste of success, and it was addictive. I didn't just want to play. I wanted more. More victories, more stars, more proof that their doubts were wrong. Revenge wasn't about yelling at them. It was about climbing so high that their words could never reach me again. And in that moment, I promised myself, this is only the beginning. From scars to stars, no matter how long it takes. The small plaque from my first victory stayed hidden under my bed. Not because I was ashamed of it, but because I couldn't bear to see my father's scowl or my mother's worried eyes every time I looked at it. For me, it was motivation. For them, it was nothing more than a distraction. School was ending, and the talk of college filled our house. My father wanted me to study business. Something practical, he insisted. Something that guarantees success. He spoke the word success like it was a cage, a set of rules already written. To him, success was stability, obedience, survival. But to me, success meant freedom. It meant revenge through victory. It meant scars to stars. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, the argument finally exploded. "You're wasting your life," my father snapped, stabbing his fork into his plate. "Enough of this tennis nonsense. You'll apply to university, you'll get a degree, and you'll stop embarrassing this family." I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms. "Tennis isn't nonsense," I said quietly at first, then louder. "It's my dream, my future." His eyes burned into me. "Dreams don't pay bills, Sofia. Discipline does. Respect does. You think swinging a racket will make you somebody? It won't. You'll end up with nothing." My mother tried to soften the moment. Your father only wants what's best for you, she said gently. But her words felt like betrayal. For years, I had swallowed my disappointment, hidden my scars, and trained in secret. But now, the weight of it all pressed down on me until something inside snapped. I'd rather end up with nothing than live a life I don't want. I shouted, my voice shaking. I'm not you, Papa. I don't want your definition of success. I want mine. I want my stars. The silence after those words was suffocating. My father's face turned red, his jaw tight. Finally, he stood, pushing his chair back with a screech. Then you're no daughter of mine if you choose this foolishness. The sentence landed like a blade. My mother gasped softly but said nothing more. That night, I packed my bag, just a duffel with clothes, my racket, and the plaque I had hidden. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. Every scar I carried had led me to this moment, the breaking point. The streets were quiet as I walked away from the house I had grown up in. My chest ached, but beneath the pain was a strange sense of freedom. I was terrified, yes, but I was also alive. For the first time, my path was truly mine. I crashed on a friend's couch for weeks, working odd jobs to afford tournament fees. Some nights I went to bed hungry. Other nights my body was too sore to move from training. I doubted myself more times than I could count. The disappointment of not having a family to lean on cut deep, leaving scars I wasn't sure would ever heal. But every morning, I picked up my racket again. Every blister, every bruise, every lonely tear was a reminder of why I was fighting. Motivation whispered through the pain. Prove them wrong. The breaking point wasn't just a moment, it was a rebirth. My family had tried to bury my dreams, but in doing so, they planted something stronger. A determination fueled by revenge, lit by the vision of success, guided by the belief that scars could and would become stars. I had nothing to fall back on, no safety net, no comforting home. But sometimes, having nothing is exactly what gives you everything. And so, I stepped fully into the unknown, ready to fight for the future I had promised myself. Life outside my family's walls was nothing like I imagined. Freedom sounded beautiful in my head, but in reality, it came with hunger, exhaustion, and silence that cut deeper than words. The couch I slept on wasn't mine. The meals I ate were sometimes borrowed. The dreams I carried felt heavy, almost impossible. And yet, every morning, I picked up my racket. Small tournaments became my battlefield. I wasn't winning championships, not yet, but I was earning respect point by point. My victories were tiny, but each one was proof that I wasn't broken. Every match was a scar carved onto my body and soul. Bruised shins, taped fingers, aching shoulders. But those scars whispered, "You are still standing." Then came the injury. During a regional match, I felt a sharp pain in my ankle as I lunged for a ball. The crowd gasped, and I collapsed on the court. The disappointment was suffocating. As the medic helped me limp away, the fear hit me like a wave. What if this is it? What if I've lost everything before it even began? For weeks, I could barely walk, let alone train. My world shrank to ice packs and restless nights. My friends grew distant. Life went on without me. I thought about my father's words, the cruel certainty in his voice. You'll end up with nothing. Was he right? But then, one evening, Coach Ramirez visited me. He looked at me lying on the couch, frustration etched across my face. "You think scars make you weaker?" he asked. "No, they make you stronger, if you let them." His words lit something inside me. My scars weren't the end of my story. They were the foundation of it. Revenge against doubt, motivation in pain, success through suffering. This was Scars to Stars in its purest form. So I pushed myself. Slowly at first. Rehab exercises, painful stretches, endless repetition. I hated every moment, but with each drop of sweat, I felt myself rising again. The ankle healed, but more importantly, my spirit hardened. I wasn't just chasing tennis anymore. I was chasing transformation. When I finally returned to the court, I was different, stronger, hungrier. I played not just with technique, but with fire. My opponents saw it in my eyes, the determination born of scars. And soon the results began to follow. Small victories turned into bigger ones. I started advancing deeper into tournaments. People in the stands began whispering my name. Social media posts appeared. Who is Sofia Alvarez? Some called me the underdog. Others said I had no future. But both fueled me. Motivation doesn't only come from love, it comes from doubt, from revenge, from the need to turn disappointment into triumph. Money was still scarce. I worked nights cleaning offices to pay for travel. I ate instant noodles more often than I cared to admit. Some days, my body felt like it was collapsing. But every time I stepped on the court, I remembered why I was there. Success wasn't optional, it was survival. And little by little, I rose. 1 year after the injury, I stood on the podium at a mid-level national tournament, holding a silver medal in my hands. It wasn't gold, but it was everything. I thought about the girl who used to cry quietly in her room, hiding a plaque under her bed. That girl had turned her scars into something shining. I looked up at the ceiling lights above the podium. They weren't stars, but in my heart, they felt like the first ones I had reached. This wasn't the end. It was only the rise through pain. The first time I stepped into an international stadium, I felt small. The court looked the same. Painted lines, net stretched tight, but everything around it was larger than life. The crowd roared in languages I didn't understand. Cameras followed my every move, and banners hung with names of players I had once only watched on TV. And now, mine was one of them, Sofia Alvarez. Getting here had been brutal. I worked through endless qualifiers, slept in cheap hostels, and traveled on buses that rattled through the night. But when I finally held the invitation letter to compete abroad, I couldn't stop staring at it. It wasn't just paper. It was proof that scars can turn into stars. Walking onto that court, my heart pounded louder than the applause. My opponent was seated higher, stronger, and more experienced. The commentators said I didn't stand a chance, but doubt had always been my motivator. Revenge wasn't against her. It was against every whisper that told me I couldn't. The first set was brutal. Every ball she sent back carried weight, speed, precision. I lost it 6-1. But instead of breaking me, it lit me on fire. I remembered the long nights cleaning offices, the hunger, the tears, my father's voice telling me I was chasing nothing. Failure was not an option. In the second set, I fought harder. I ran for every ball, sliding, diving, gritting my teeth through the pain. The crowd began to shift. They could see I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting. Every point I won, the cheers grew louder. By the time I tied the match, people were chanting my name. I didn't win that day. The final set slipped away. But when I walked off the court, the stadium gave me a standing ovation. To them, I wasn't just a player. I was a story. A girl who carried scars and turned them into something beautiful. Back in the locker room, I sat with my head in my hands, breathing heavy. My phone buzzed with dozens of notifications. Articles, social media posts, even short video clips of my dives across the court. My name was trending. And then, one message stood out. It was from my younger brother. Just 4 words. "We watched you today." For a moment, I froze. My family, the same people who doubted, underestimated, and crushed my dreams, had seen me. Maybe with pride, maybe with envy, maybe with regret. But they saw me. That night, I looked at the sky outside my hotel window. The stars shone faintly through the city lights, but to me, they felt close. Success was no longer a dream, it was happening, and I knew this was only the beginning. From scars to stars, from silence to applause, from the girl no one believed in to the woman standing on the world stage. Success can open doors you never imagined, but it also opens doors you thought were locked forever. By the time I started appearing in international tournaments, articles with my name in the headlines, my face on posters, and clips of my matches going viral, I thought I had finally escaped the shadow of my past. But shadows follow you, no matter how bright the lights. It was after a major tournament in Miami that it happened. I had reached the semifinals, farther than anyone had predicted. The crowd's chants still rang in my ears as I entered the banquet hall for the post-tournament charity gala. The chandeliers glowed like captured stars, the tables sparkled with glassware, and photographers lined the walls, waiting to capture every smile. When my name was called, Sofia Alvarez, the rising star of women's tennis, the room erupted in applause. I walked onto the stage in a simple but elegant black dress, my hair tied back, a small silver necklace resting against my collarbone. I thanked the sponsors, the fans, the coaches who believed in me when no one else did. It should have been a perfect night. Then I saw them. At the far end of the room, near the back wall, stood my parents and my younger brother. My chest tightened instantly. For a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, they were real. The people who told me I would never succeed, who made my childhood a battlefield of doubt and disappointment, were right there among the well-dressed crowd. My father looked older, the lines on his face carved deeper. His hair was grayer, his shoulders heavier. My mother's eyes were soft, almost apologetic, while my brother shifted awkwardly, as if he wasn't sure whether he wanted to be there at all. When the event ended, I couldn't avoid them. They approached me slowly, carefully, like people stepping onto thin ice. "You've done well," my father said at last. His voice was quieter than I remembered, but it carried the same weight it always had. Not "I'm proud of you," not "I was wrong," just "done well." For a moment, rage surged inside me. Memories flooded back. Him tearing down my posters, telling me I'd never make it. Watching me leave home with nothing but a duffel bag and a racket. The nights I cried myself to sleep. The mornings I played through hunger. The injury that almost ended me. He hadn't been there for any of it. And now he stood here, acknowledging my success only because the world forced him to. I wanted to scream. To shout, "Where were you when I needed you?" To list every scar he gave me, every dream he tried to bury. Instead, I took a deep breath. My voice didn't tremble when I finally answered. "You doubted me. You underestimated me. You tried to hold me back, but all you gave me were scars, and those scars became my strength. They became my motivation, my revenge, my success. From scars to stars. That's my story, and none of it was because of you. It was in spite of you." My mother's eyes welled with tears. She reached for my hand, but I didn't take it. My brother avoided my gaze, staring at the polished marble floor. My father stayed silent, his mouth opening slightly, but no words escaping. For once he had nothing to say. I turned and walked away, the click of my heels echoing like applause in the hollow silence. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the girl running from her family. I felt like the woman who had finally risen above them. That night, as I stood on the balcony of my hotel room, the city lights glittered beneath me like constellations. I thought about how far I had come. From the kitchen where my father told me I was nothing, to the stadium where thousands cheered my name. From tears on a borrowed couch to a life where even the stars felt within reach. The past had confronted me, and I hadn't crumbled. I had stood tall, scars to stars, always. The stadium was a living ocean, waves of cheers rising and falling, cameras flashing like lightning. This was it, the Grand Slam final. The dream I had chased through hunger, pain, rejection, and scars. My name glowed on the giant scoreboard beside a champion's, and for the first time I wasn't the underdog. I was the contender. As I walked onto the court, I felt the weight of my racket in my hand, the sun beating down, the vibration of thousands of voices chanting. My opponent was a world number one, a woman I had idolized years ago when I was still sneaking late-night matches on an old TV. Now I was across the net from her. The first set was brutal. Every rally was a war, every shot carrying power that made my bones rattle. She took it 6-4. I sat on the bench, breathing hard, staring at the towel in my hands. Doubt crept in, whispering familiar words. "You'll never make it. You're not enough." The same words my father once spat across the kitchen table. But this time, I answered back. Scars to stars. Motivation. Revenge. Success. In the second set, I fought with everything I had. My legs screamed, my shoulder burned, but I refused to let go. I chased every ball, sliding across the court, hitting with fury. When I finally won the set 7-5, the stadium erupted. The crowd wasn't just watching me anymore. They were with me. The final set was a blur of sweat, screams, and sheer willpower. Match point came with me serving, my heart thundering louder than the applause. I tossed the ball into the sky, swung with every ounce of strength, and when my opponent's return hit the net, the world stopped. I dropped to my knees. The sound of victory wasn't just the roar of the stadium. It was the silence inside me, the weight lifting, the scars finally transforming into light. They placed the trophy in my hands, and tears blurred my vision. The medal was heavy, but it felt lighter than all the burdens I had carried. Reporters shouted my name, flashes blinded me, and in the chaos, I thought of my younger self, the girl who hid a plaque under her bed because no one cared. I held the trophy high. This, I whispered to myself, is for every doubt, every scar, every no. This is my success. Later that night, standing on the balcony of the Champions Suite, I looked out at the stars. They weren't distant anymore. They were mine. From scars to stars, that was my journey. That was my triumph, and it was only the beginning.